So, the Oscars got the slightest bit more interesting. As if the movie industry didn't have enough problems. They've had to deal with the global toilet paper shortage for the last couple of years, declining box office receipts for the last decade, and the ruination of several high-profile tentpole franchises, and the upcoming ruination for more in the next couple of years, mind you. They've also had the gall to preach to us about how we're so wrong, and they're always right. This even after several high-profile bombs in a row that demonstrate that maybe audiences don't want what they're shoveling to us. With interest in the Academy Awards at an all-time low, their latest attempt at salvaging the broadcast was to impose diversity requirements for Best Picture. This was after a pressure campaign on Twitter that, even though it worked, doesn't represent what the audience actually wants. What the audience wants is an escape from the very real problems of the world for a few hours, such as war, disease, hunger, and poverty. So on Sunday, March 27, 2022, the 94th Oscars took to the stage, and lo and behold, it gave us a moment that I don't think anyone saw coming. Not even Chris Rock. Now, for those wondering why this happened, Will Smith's wife, Jada Pinkett Smith, has been very publicly going through an autoimmune condition known as alopecia. If you're unfamiliar with it, it's a fairly benign, non-life-threatening condition that causes hair to fall out, or to fall out in patches. Alopecia can be caused by hormonal changes, stress, changes in diet, or even a traumatic event. The fact that the condition isn't life-threatening doesn't diminish what anyone is experiencing going through it. However, unless someone openly says, "I have alopecia," then how are you really to know if someone is suffering from it? And this is the point where we come to Chris Rock. Rock was presenting the award for Best Documentary when he made the joke about Will Smith's wife, Jada Pinkett Smith, and her hair loss, and her being in an upcoming G.I. Jane 2 film.
Jada, I love you. G.I. Jane 2, can't wait to see it.
Whether he was egged on by his wife, who visibly didn't take to the joke, or was frustrated at Rock and having a laugh at her expense and her illness that she had no control over, Smith apparently had had enough. Now, for those who think that this is a cheap stunt to increase ratings for the telecast, let's be clear that over the last decade, the audience for the Academy Awards telecast has shrunk by over 83%, from 76 million viewers in 2012 to about 13 million viewers this year. ABC's Rob Mills told Variety that the G.I. Jane joke was completely off script, and that even though the show's producers are often prepared for things that have happened in the past, this caught them completely off guard. As to why the uncensored version of the video made it to air in other countries, ABC sends the feed internationally and they determine what to do with it themselves. While in the US, live shows are often broadcast on a delay, so that the standards and practices guys can make the call whether or not to bleep out the naughty bits. Jada Pinkett Smith has since made a quote-unquote statement, which is really a non-statement. There's no mention of what happened, Chris Rock, or anything regarding what transpired, which in my opinion makes me think that this was the work of her publicist and not actually anything she said herself. Lost in all of this is why have the awards and the Oscar ceremony lost most of its luster to anyone other than those who were in the room? Well, there are a number of reasons. First, despite what some would have you believe, the new diversity requirements aren't going to save it, and neither will an aggravated assault carried out on live television. I know that there's this belief by many of, I want to see myself on screen, but the whole idea of watching a movie is to see people who are not you. Unless I'm watching a documentary, I want to escape from my problems for a few hours. And when you see a bunch of people on television in fancy clothes that cost more than what most make in a year, accepting statues given to them by other wealthy people for pretending to be someone they're not, then you start to realize how not like you they really are. And like I always say, if I wanted to see myself on screen, the only movies I'd watch would star Jack Black. Which brings us to problem number 2, which is the most glaring of all in this whole discussion that nobody's addressed. Nobody has actually seen any of these movies that they're nominating. Let's just take a look at the list of nominees for Best Picture for the year 1968. You have In the Heat of the Night, Winner, Bonnie and Clyde, The Graduate, Dr. Dolittle, and Guess Who's Coming to Dinner? Wait a second, 2 of those movies have diverse casts. Are you telling me that diversity's always been around? Well, I'm as shocked as you are. Anyway, I digress. I can't speak for anyone else, but of the 5 nominees, I have personally seen 3 of them. Furthermore, 3 of those films are the top grossing movies of the year. Now let's take a look at 1978. For Best Picture you have Annie Hall, Winner, Star Wars, The Goodbye Girl, Julia, and The Turning Point. Again, I've seen at least 2, possibly 3 of these films. I may have seen The Goodbye Girl at some point, but I can't remember. And Star Wars was the highest grossing film of the year and of all time at that point. Now let's take a look at the movies nominated this year for Best Picture. Nightmare Alley, Dune, West Side Story, Don't Look Up, Licorice Pizza, Belfast, Power of the Dog, King Richard, Coda. Now, granted there's more nominees and we went a while without theaters being open, But who has seen any of these? I know people went to see Dune and we're living in unusual times, but if you had asked what any of these movies are about, with the exception of Dune and West Side Story, I'd have no idea. This trend more or less started back in 1997, when the film The English Patient was nominated for Best Picture, and everyone just kind of went along with it despite no one even really liking it. Something that became the basis for an entire episode of Seinfeld. I hate it! And it's been all downhill ever since. Will Smith, Chris Rock, diversity, make all the excuses you want. The real reason nobody's watching this thing anymore is because nobody has a vested interest in any of these films. If you want to rekindle interest in the Academy Awards and in the movies in general, then here's how you do it. This is a wacky idea, so just work with me on this one. Nominate movies that people have actually seen. There's a disconnect between the Academy and the audience that only seems to be getting wider as time goes on. Back in 2003, it seemed like the only reason they gave Peter Jackson a Best Picture statue for Return of the King was because they had to. Otherwise, the Academy would lose credibility, like they had any to begin with. But barring Black Panther, a movie which I personally didn't like, it's difficult to name one really popular movie that has been nominated for an award in recent memory. The Academy has become that snooty hipster that nobody takes seriously, but has convinced those who are in the know that he is the avatar of cool, and always feels compelled to give you his playlists, which are usually full of obscure bands that nobody has heard of, and that one Taylor Swift track that he swears he loves, ironically. Now, this is not to say movies like Avengers Endgame should be nominated for Best Picture. A movie that I liked the first time I saw it, but I really wouldn't want to watch it again because of its length. However, there has to be some kind of middle ground here. There's got to be something that the public has seen or was willing to see that you can nominate for these awards. Because if this was a stunt like many believe it is, then you're not going to need just a slap in the face next year to drum up interest. You're going to need a bench-clearing brawl. See you next time.